Hey folks, Wes from Woodworking here once again, and hold on. Do toolboxes matter anymore? I mean, of course toolboxes matter, right? There are countless videos here on YouTube and on Reddit and spread all across the internet of mechanics and millwrights and DIYers and everybody in between showing off their roll cabs and their roll carts and their toolboxes in exquisite detail. Same for the job site. There are countless videos out there showing how people have optimized, personalized, and modified their packouts, their tough systems, their systeinders, and however many other kind of modular toolbox systems there are out there to be perfect for what they're doing. So obviously those matter. I mean, sure, sometimes people's recommendations really do come down to more of I'm for team red, or I'm for team yellow, or I'm for team whatever color systainer would be, gray, green, gray. But that's besides the point, right? And of course, lots of people are big fans of the Vito Pro Pack series, probably because these things suck. But to be honest, I'm not really thinking about everybody when I say do toolboxes still matter. I'm really thinking about carpenters and furniture makers and cabinet makers, woodwrights, if you will, to drag Roy Underhill into this. Here he is standing on a workbench, possibly pissing off Iron Chef Morimoto. Who knows? But I guess the real question I have is, has building your own toolbox gone away? As I mentioned before, my dad was a carpenter, and growing up I worked with him for a couple of years thinking that I was going to become a carpenter too, and most of his tools lived in wooden toolboxes kind of like these, or in tool chests more like these that I've always associated with finished carpenters and woodworkers and the like. But I don't see a lot of toolboxes like this anymore, or those. Most of what I see is plastic, or less commonly these days, metal. And there's nothing wrong with that. God knows wood is heavy and kind of unforgiving, and the weather can do bad things to it. But back in the day, a carpenter's toolbox, or a furniture maker or cabinet maker, their toolboxes often served as their resume. It was a way to show off what you could do and how well you could do it. And I don't think there's anyone out there that hasn't seen this absolute piece of art by H.O. Studley. This guy built the wooden cases for pianos, and you could tell from his toolbox just how good he was at what he did and how much thought he put into it. Honestly, these things are amazing. And seeing them open like this, it's just wild. Now, I know that a lot of furniture makers and woodworkers in general still build these big tool hutches and toolboxes like this, but is this still a thing that carpenters do? Do they even think about it? Or are boxes like these relics of the past? A nice thing to look at, but not really applicable to the modern world. Because on YouTube and Instagram and Reddit and places like that, you see tons of pictures of pack-out and discussions of tough system, or the relative benefits of switching to, say, the rigid system versus the Klein system versus the flex system versus, my God, why are there so many of these? But you don't see a lot of wooden toolboxes. They're kind of more of an oddity or a one-off craft piece than they are a working man's necessity these days. But even going beyond that, I don't think you see a lot of metal carpenter's toolboxes these days. You know, the old school long Proto or Kennedy box that had the knockout for your framing square. But again, I'm not knocking any of this stuff. I've obviously got a Milwaukee pack out. I've got metal toolboxes. I've got rolling carts. I've also got this though. But I think this might be an anachronism. And really, when you think about it, it's not the pack-out system or the Vito Pro Pack that has changed the way people carry their tools. It really has a lot more to do with changing technology. Back when hand tools were what everybody used for 90% of their work or more, yeah, your toolbox was super important. Not only did it show how good you were at your job, but it also had to be functional and carry almost all the tools you would need to build a house or a store or a building of any kind in one box. So you had to put a lot of thought into them, and you had to really organize them properly. And the reason carpenters' toolboxes were long was because they had to carry handsaws. Handsaws are an afterthought now. Uh-oh, something's gone wrong. I need a handsaw, or a tool that gets used occasionally. It's not the centerpiece of a carpenter's day the way it once was. Hell, the hammer really isn't the centerpiece of a carpenter's day anymore, not with the advent of air nailers and electric nailers. But a toolbox like this, or even a tool chest, even considering their weight, has its advantages. It allows you unbelievable levels of personalization. You can really lay the toolbox out in a way that matches how you work, the tools you carry. And frankly, while it can be finicky, it's honestly a little bit easier than modifying something like a Milwaukee Packout or a Sustainer or something like that to really fit your needs. So one of the first things I built when I got this shop and we moved into this house, and I started thinking about getting back into woodworking and building, and something that I'd really missed for a long time after I left working with my father years ago was this toolbox. And I thought of it as something I was going to use when I framed, hopefully, an addition to the house. Now, admittedly, these tools probably don't match what's used today. They're kind of what was in my mind from the mid to late 90s, and I was working with my father. There's been a lot of things that happened since then in both my life, the real world, and the building trade, so this may not match how things are done now, but matches the way I was probably going to do them to an extent. So it's got a place for the Sharpies and markers I thought I might use, a place where my speed square can live, a couple of chisels that probably won't be used that much, but it's nice to have a place for them where they can stay sharp and protected when they're not in use. It's got a home for this level, a handsaw, which also won't see a lot of use, a notch and a slot here to hold this framing square, and some of the other assorted hand tools that I remember commonly using on the job site. Multi-screwdriver, an awl, adjustable wrench to change saw blades, T-bevel, and a utility knife. And I try to leave a lot of open space for various other things. Framing hammer, cat's paw, demolition screwdriver, some nippers, plumb bob, chalk line, little layout tool that I think is kind of cool. I forget what it's called. And back there is a 100-foot tape measure for doing layout. Now, obviously this doesn't represent necessarily all the tools you need for framing, but it represents the kind of stuff I remember carrying on my tool belt back when I was doing this with my father. So again, I come back to this question is, do toolboxes like this matter anymore? Or are they destined to go the way of things like the Yankee screwdriver, a saw set, or a chuck key? Are they just pieces of a past that's slowly disappearing? Obviously, things like Packout, Sustainer, the Vito Pro Pack, and the like dominate the conversation these days for a reason. People in the trades, builders, carpenters, everyone else has found them to be useful and perhaps easier in a way than these are. Of course, they've proven themselves time and time again in weather, in rough situations, easier to carry, easier to maneuver. I know they have lots of pluses. Again, that's why I bought a Packout. It really seems to fit some of the needs I have in terms of doing occasional repair work for people at various places. But at the same time, I have to wonder if we've lost something by moving away from the old wooden carpenter's long boxes and tool chests, even if it is just a connection to the history of the trade. So let me know what you guys think. I'd love to know if anybody out there is still building or thinking about building their own toolboxes, or if you used to use wooden toolboxes like this, what made you move away from them? What have been the advantages of using things like the Packout system or the Tough Stack system or whatnot? What do you miss? What do you think's better? Anyway, guys, really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you have a moment, please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Later.